Welcome, boys and girls and children of all ages, or some other bullcrap that people say to each other at a circus or something. I am Bear of BearIndependent.com. You all know that. That's why you're here. And if you're new here, welcome, question mark. I hope you like it here. If not, learn to swim, walk the plank. You'll figure it out. This is the threat matrix. I can't believe he said that. I'm unsubscribing. Later. Threat matrix. All right, there's a lot of crazy stuff going on in the world. This is literally the whiteboard from the 19 May 2020 Daily Brief, Bear Daily Brief. You should check that out if you want to not be behind the times, if you want to stay informed. That is a way that I would recommend that you do it. Now, of course, like everything, you're going to get a little bit of my biases, of my skewed view of reality, but I try and keep it as clean as I can, okay? Threat matrix. What is the threat matrix? You can see we have 5 columns here. The .gov, the government, whether this is federal, state, local, civilians, that's more or less us, okay? The system would otherwise be military-industrial complex, corporate America, whatever, right? These very large corporations that are essentially intertwined with the way that we are governed, that provide us power, water, internet, food, transpo, so forth, so on, okay? The system. China. China is a country that's over there. It's in Asia. Everybody tells me, believe me, when I say China, I mean China. Grab them. And other could be, in this case, in this particular report, it was Iran, okay? We have other instances, for example, around the country, around the world right now. In the South China Sea, you have Malaysia, you have Australia, you have Vietnam, you have the Chinese and the Americans and Iran, question mark, all have ships in or around the South China Sea. India's kind of sitting back, scratching their beard going, I wonder what is going on, and so forth and so on, right? So other, okay? These are the 5 columns that I put intel into, because that's what this is. It's a way to quantify, correlate, visualize intel. You can have as many columns as you like. If you want 3, go for it. If you want 12, go for it. Whatever floats your boat, homeboy, homegirl, we're inclusive, home furry, whatever your deal is. If you need a litter box to poop in, there's a men's room and a women's room at the end of the hall. Litter box is outside behind the dumpster. Good luck. Okay, then over here we have people all the time. They're like, Bear, I can't see the whiteboard. Well, there's the whiteboard. Thanks, Bear. You're welcome. Economic crisis, food shortage, civil unrest, tyranny and or elections, whiskey, Alpha Romeo, war, and then disinformation. And then examples of Rome burning. Vanna, can I get a vowel? Nope, you can't. How many A's in Bear Independent? 1 A in Bear, 0 A's in Independent. That's right. .com. So these are the 7 things that I'm tracking. Again, you can add more or less to this, however you see fit. But these are the 7 examples that I'm tracking literally daily with y'all during the daily brief. Economic crisis is self-explanatory. Hey, the stock market's more volatile than, what's that, the Scream Machine at Six Flags in Jersey? Yeah, that's right. Made a Six Flags reference. Remember when you could go there and now they're all like, the park is shut down, get back in your vehicle or you will be cited. Sorry, bro, just wanted to ride the Scream Machine. Food shortage, self-explanatory. And this has been going on. Food shortage, by the way, has been coming. You got locusts in Africa working their way into Asia. Grand solar minimum thing's been happening for a while now, but kind of hardcore for the last couple of years. No plant 2019 was a big deal, and now here we are in 2020. We got farmers tilling their crops into the ground. There's no migrant workers, agricultural workers to come in and pick food in a lot of areas. The system, again, is busted, transposed down. The truckers are being taken advantage of, protesting in Washington and in Austin, the Texas capital. chickens and pigs are being slaughtered by the millions because the processing plants that process that meat have been shut down. Small-scale processors are booked out into next year. Cattle thus far hasn't been terribly affected, but the supply is roughly below usual, but the demand is way up because there's a shortage of chicken and pork. So prices are skyrocketing. We've seen anywhere between $5 and $9 a pound for 80-20 ground beef right now. It's just like, what, typically $2 or $3 a pound? So food shortage, right? Civil unrest. This is people behaving badly. More and more incidents. Cut. Go. More and more incidents of this have been happening. Nailed it. People behaving badly. People who are being mugged. That wouldn't otherwise be mugged. I mean, let's not mention LA, Detroit, New York City, Bridgeport, Connecticut, the murder capital of the East Coast, Miami, right? You know, all the usual thuggish things going on, plus additional thuggish things going on. To say nothing of armed persons storming the Capitol in Michigan because they want their liberties back. Civil unrest. Tyranny in elections. This ought to be self-explanatory. Anything goofy with elections, for example, 300 ballots in one county in Ohio that were never delivered on time yet somehow counted, right? That's screwy. Tyranny. Nick Koumalatsis, his gym being shut down. Yes, that's right. The excommunicated warrior himself, former Marine Raider, I believe. I think he was Marine Raider. Anyway, somebody, was he Marsoc? Yeah. Somebody will correct me. It's cool. He's a cool dude. Had his gym shut down in North Carolina because they're like, you're violating the governor's orders. Well, the governor's orders aren't laws and they don't supersede the Constitution of these United States of America. Yet and still, he's shut down. And this is happening all over the place. That is actually contributing to economic crisis because 52% of businesses polled in a recent study said that they will be out of business in the next 6 months. They will be out of business. Not a question mark. They will be. So over half of small businesses. That's creating economic crisis because that can create localized food shortage and civil unrest because people don't have the money to buy the things that they need to survive because they're not being allowed to earn the money. When they don't earn the money, there's decreased tax revenue and trickle-down economics, which actually leads to more tyranny because the powers that be will try even harder to clamp down on the authority that is already vested in them. Whiskey Alpha Romeo. Whiskey, Alpha, Romeo, war. Lots of war and rumors of war right now. Matthew 24. Master, when will all these things take place? For truly I say to you, not one of these stones shall be left upon the other. And they're like, what? When's that gonna be? And he's like, listen up, kids. And in that day there will be wars and rumors of wars, and famine and disease and earthquakes in diverse places. A lot of that going on right now. Is it the end times, Bear? I don't know. I think we'll know it when we know it. I think it will be blatantly undeniable when it's end times. We won't be going, hey guys, I think it's the end times. We'll be like, holy, it's end times. Ah! We're not there yet. We're not there yet. If we are there, then John, the apostle, has a lot of splaining to do in the book of Revelation. Because this is not what I was expecting. It sounded a lot worse than this. Yes, and I know, thou shalt not tempt the Lord thy God. And I'm not. I'm just pointing out that if this is end times, boy, not at all what my expectation was. But war, we just talked about the South China Sea. There's increased border disputes between India and Pakistan. You have Australia and now 120 nations in a coalition to investigate the origins of COVID-19, essentially pointing fingers at China. China doesn't have any money. They've put trillions and trillions of fake dollars into economies around the world, including the U.S. stock market. And they're not going to be able to make reparations to the entire world for that. And so what's going to happen? War is a game of resources. War is taking certain resources, manpower, materiel, munitions, equipment, and deploying those either against the defense of other resources, oil, steel, food, water, energy, whatever it may be, or against the acquisition of other resources, right? It's essentially what it comes down to. And I mean no offense whatsoever. If you've ever been one of those resources that has put your boots on the ground squarely affixed upon the battlefield in defense of these United States of America, thank you. I'm not in any way degrading your contribution. I'm saying at the most basic level, that's what war is. It's the allocation of certain resources for the defensive or acquisition of other resources. And so as all of this stuff continues to percolate and escalate, that's right, big words. I need another 8 word. Percolate, escalate, perpetuate. I don't know, I feel like Bush number 2. Whatever. War becomes more likely because all of this tightens up. So as resources tighten up and we lose the ability to be diplomatic with one another, to speak to each other as individuals, as sovereign nations, with respect, man to man, woman to woman, when we lose that, when sanctions don't work, when we no longer have economic leverage to deal with one another, what's left? Well, there's covert action, which I guarantee you is through the roof right now. But then there's also overt war. And so, and to be clear, I don't like any of this. I am not one of those preppers who's like, yeah, man, I can't wait for the zombie apocalypse, man. I'm going to be stacking bodies at my mailbox. No, thank you. I'm not interested. I just want to run my businesses and my ministry. I want to raise my kids. I want to eat food out of my garden and eat my sheep and my chickens. Like, I don't want the world to go to hell in a handbasket. However, it seems that it's trying to, regardless of what Bear might want, which is actually kind of annoying. I wish that it would just acquiesce to my will, behave itself, simmer down, sit down, take a time out, everybody put their head against the wall in the corner, count to 1 minute, not to 1, that'd be a terrible timeout. Count to 1 minute, 60 seconds, deep breath, USA, and let's all play nice again. However, it does not seem that that's going to happen. All of this, especially when you throw in war and tyranny, creates an ample opportunity for disinformation. There's tons of that. Well, Bear, I heard that President Trump's going to use the military to put that vaccine in everybody mandatory, and it's got RFID tracking chips that Bill Gates put in there. Okay, those are 2 different things, and neither one of those statements is accurate. This is just a brief example, literally an example from the brief that I'm going to try and keep short. President Trump said he would use the military to distribute the vaccine to those who needed it the most. Elderly people, morbidly obese, immunocompromised in large areas of population density, cities essentially. Those people who fit the profile of somebody who absolutely has to have the vaccine. Voluntarily, if they'd like to take it, the military would be used to distribute that vaccine because our busted up supply chain and logistics, the system, isn't working near as well as it used to. Has anybody noticed that Amazon 2-day shipping is now like Amazon 5-week shipping? My point exactly. So if you had to move the vaccine around the country, you got the military essentially on standby anyway. That's what he was talking about, distribution of the vaccine. And then the RFID tag that's on the vaccine is not inside of the syringe. It's on the outside of the syringe, and that is being used so that the syringe can very quickly be scanned rather than having the nurse or whoever is administering the vaccine having to go, date of birth, name, vaccine number, time, mother's maiden name, first pet, blood type, boop, boop. Now, that being said, I don't want the vaccine, and you will not mandate that I can take it. However, if you all voluntarily decide to take it, that's what the RFID, cut, go. That's what the RFID tag is for. So that they can, boop, scan it, and then go about their business to speed up the process. But that is just one example of how 2 things cross-pollinate to create disinformation, and then you get people who, like, are trying to sell you mood crystals and energy rings. We're like, this is being used to inoculate the people of the reptilian overlords who gotta have the tinfoil hats on so that they can go down into the center of the flat earth to make babies with the mole people so that they can come up and repopulate the earth after the great cataclysm when Nibiru smacks into the planet and absolutely destroys it. It's like, thank you, Cletus, but that is not what we're talking about here, okay? And then Rome is burning. This is just simply examples of how things should be one way, but they're not anymore because the infrastructure, the personnel, the revenue doesn't exist for that to be the norm anymore. The new normal, sliding into the new normal. Rome is burning. The empire is not doing what it should do. And here, I mean literally the United States of America, okay? And so that's these 7 things here. 7 different kind of categories and our 5 different factors up here. And again, you populate this however you see fit. And then based upon the Daily Brief 19 May, this is what we got. So the .gov is responsible for 17 of these issues right here. Civilians, us, 6. And though honestly, I gotta be completely honest, this really should be disinformation for sure. A lot of that comes from civilians because y'all think that Facebook is a reputable news source. So, 7, the system. 23 of these items are directly related to the system. Jaina, 5, and other is 2. So if we were just to look at this, we could say the system has the highest probability. The system and the .gov for sure. These 2 things right here represent almost 80%. The government and the system, doing or not doing certain things, represent almost 80% of the entire threat that we see right here. So if we were to take those 2 things, those 2 factors, the government and the system, then come over here to the end of the board, we have 12 tick marks in the economic crisis category, 6 in food shortage, 11 in civil unrest, 5 in tyranny, 7 in war, 6 in disinformation, although that's actually 7 because we added the civilians to that. And then 4 in Rome is burning. And so if we were to extrapolate this data just based upon how we populated this matrix, our predominant threats right now are economic crisis and civil unrest having to do with the government and the system. I'll tell you what, based upon the news articles that I'm seeing, and I am on a low information diet, that correlates with what we're seeing in America and in the world right now. Economic crisis and civil unrest because of the government and the system. Accurate? Accurate. Well, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, Bear. You could front-load that with the right data to come up with that. I have no vested interest in this being one way or another. It just is what it is. And then you could go further from that and say that if you had to prepare for something right now, what would it be? How about economic crisis? And because it's economic crisis, do we want to have all of our eggs in one basket? I don't know. The system's looking a little bit shaky. What about federal bonds, government bonds? Should we invest? I don't know. The .gov is looking a little bit shaky too. And again, I'm not an investment strategist. I'm just some random a-hole on the internet. So your mileage may vary, right? So forth and so on. What about civil unrest? Well, civil unrest because of the system and the government, this would be the concept of being independent of the system, which is what we teach and preach here at Bear Independent. This is why you want to be independent of the system, because when the system can't ship food, but you can go get it out of your backyard, you're going to do a lot better than everybody else, okay? So you can take this extrapolated data and apply it to your position however you see fit. That is the threat matrix. That is how I do this in my head pretty much every day. I hope that this was helpful to you. Remember to always smile because you're on camera. And also remember that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, except for bears, because bears will kill you. Just kidding. Love you guys. Shalom, y'all.